this is your snack sandwich. Today I have a quick video for you on Wildcat. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time explaining it here because I do have a flowchart for you and there's a lot to talk about here, okay? But as always, I always suggest you come and read the docs, verify what I'm saying, make sure you agree with what I'm saying. The docs and as well as the white paper, it's quite accessible as well as comprehensive. So I would definitely suggest you to go in here and look at this, and especially if you want to actually use this, because this is not for everybody. This is for specific users that want to do specific things. So if you're one of those users, then I would suggest you really dig in here and dig deep. But let me give you a little introduction and kind of explain how this thing works underneath. Okay, so here we are on the flowchart. We have Dollar Bill. Dollar Bill wants to take part in Wildcat Protocol. He wants to use the Wildcat Protocol to borrow some tokens. So the first thing he has to do is he has to contact Wild Protocol. There's a form. You fill in the form, and you have to. They want to know some information about you, like who are you, why you want to do this, and stuff like this. Okay, and then if they think it's okay, it sounds good, they will then tell this contract that they have. It's called the Arch Controller, and this Arch Control contract is controlled by Wildcat Protocol team, and they know it pretty much knows everything that's going on. Okay, so it's just kind of like a overarching looking at everything, and it has a little bit of power, but it doesn't have a whole lot of power. Okay, so basically the main thing that it does is it can say who can borrow assets, who can set up markets. Okay. So now that they've said okay, they'll deploy Dollar Bill this factory. Okay. Now, Dollar Bill will interact with this factory to mint new contracts that are called markets. Okay. And these markets have like some parameters, some settings on them. So he interacts with this the factory, and he tells the factory, oh, issue me a new market that has these following perimeters. I'm going to go through them and briefly talk a little bit about each of them. So obviously, WETH, this is the asset he wants to borrow. Some symbol stuff like, oh, bill, and the name of the token is dollar bill, because there's some minting of ERC20 tokens that are going to be called bill WETH, right? And then the max capacity of 1,000 in this case, he can set this to like, and this is how many tokens he's willing to pay interest on. This is not how many tokens he wants to borrow, okay? So in this case, he's willing to pay interest on 1,000 WETH, okay? And then the reserve ratio, in this case, he sets it to 10%. He can set it to whatever he wants. Now, this is a discussion between him and his future, his future lenders, right? So it's kind of like a safety net, like, oh, I'm going to leave this much money inside the market so that if you want to take some money, if you need some money, you can take it out. Okay. So in this case, so you see it's a max capacity of 1,000 ETH go into this market, and he can borrow out 900, and he has to leave 100 because he set it to 10. Okay. So APR is how much he's willing to pay on that 1,000 ETH. So 5% every a year, right? And then there's a penalty APR. Okay, the penalty APR goes hand in hand with this grace period. So there's a setting of a grace period and a setting of penalty APR. So the grace period is a little bit strange. Okay, so it's kind of like a count up, count down of 3 days. So he has 3 days where he can be below the reserve ratio to pay it back. But if he exceeds 3 days, let's say it takes him 5 days to pay back, right? Then there's a 2-day gap there where he has to pay. But like I said, it counts up 2 and then down 2. So he will actually have to pay 4 days of penalty APR, because if he pays it back in 5 days. I hope that makes sense. And then the withdrawal cycle is, in this case, he sets it to 7 days. And this is when people want to, like the lenders want to take back some money. There's a time period where like, oh, they have to wait. So they ask for the money, and then they wait 7 days, and then they can claim back the money. Now this will become more clear as I progress through this flowchart. So first thing he's going to do is he's going to add the people to this market and say, oh, I want these people to be able to deposit. Okay, so he whitelists these people's addresses. So he's going to add mom, and he's going to add boosted bill to this market. Now these people can deposit up to this capacity, of course, right? So, and let's say in this case, mom deposits 900, and she gets back 900 bill WETH. So BILLWETH. Okay, and boosted bill deposits 100, and he gets back 100 of these. Now these bill WETH tokens are rebasing based on the APR. So they're he's constantly getting more of these bill ETH tokens, and they're always redeemable 1-to-1 for ETH. Okay. Now he's going to borrow out 900 WETH. Okay, like I mentioned before, he has to leave the collateral ratio 10%. So in this case, he's going to borrow the full amount, and then he'll take that WETH and he'll go and do whatever it is he wants to do with it, right? He wants to market make, he wants to lever up, he wants to do whatever he wants with that ETH. And now this is something that has to be kind of disclosed with your lenders. Like there's a lot of talking off chain between these parties where they kind of agree, oh, I want to do this with the money. Okay, we're willing to lend it to you at this APR. And all of these settings should probably be negotiated with these people in advance, right? Now, one of the things he can do is he can remove mom. Let's say he doesn't want mom to interact with this. Let's say there's still some gap inside here, right? So he's like, oh, I don't want mom to add more WETH, so I'm going to remove mom, or and stuff like this. So he can remove mom, but he can't actually stop her from dealing with the stuff that he already has. So he can blacklist her from future things, but the contracts that are already deployed are already immutable, and she can obviously, he can't rug her basically, okay? One of the things he can do is he can reduce the capacity, but in some cases that might require, if he reduces the capacity, then if he has 900 out, he might also have to put some money back in order to reduce the capacity. Now the reason why he'd want to do that is because he's paying APR on the capacity. Okay, he's paying APR on all 1,000, and let's say he only needs 500, then he can reduce the capacity. But obviously, if he's got 900, he needs to put some back in order to reduce the capacity to 500, right? Another thing he can do is he can adjust the APR. So obviously he can set the APR up if he wants, right, which will have no effect. But if he wants to reduce the APR down, then these people might want to leave, right? They're like, hey, we had a deal. You're going to pay us 5%, and now you want to reduce the APR to 3%. Now, there might be reasons why he wants to do that, like, oh, he's paying way more than like T-bills or something like this, if it's a USDC or something. So he's like, well, I might as well just use T-bills or blah, blah, blah. So I just want to give a little bit more than T-bills so that people come. I don't want to give 2 times T-bills, right? So something like this, right? So when he does this, then he might have, like, there's a case where he's most likely going to have to pay some back for the reserve ratio, but the reserve ratio, because he's adjusting it down, then there's some crazy math in here, but so I put ×2, right? But it's like you got to go to the math and figure out exactly how it works. But basically his reserve ratio is going to go up for 2 weeks. So he's going to have to put a bunch of money back, and then after those 2 weeks, he can take more back out. He can go back to the reserve ratio of 10%. Now that's, again, like I said, it's because he's changing the APR. So he has to put money back and give these people like the ability to take some of their money back because, hey, you're changing the deal in a sense, right? Now he can also close the market, assuming he pays everything off. He pays back all the debt. The circulating supply. Like, these guys will be able to redeem all their bill with. He'll pay that off, and then he can close the market, and then he stops having to pay interest. Okay, so even though they haven't claimed, they haven't come with their bill WETH stops rebasing when he closes the market. Okay. Now, let's say he wants to open a new market. He can do that with different parameters, instead of changing, like let's say he wants to change the names or the max capacity. He can also open a second market with the factory at any time he wants. Okay. Now, the Wildcat, at any time, let's say they feel like Dollar Bill's taking advantage of things, or he's doing shady stuff, or what have you. The Wildcat has the ability to close that factory and stop him from producing new markets, right? But these markets that are already out will always be there, and they can't affect those markets, okay? So let's talk a little bit about repaying, okay, or claiming back or getting some money back, okay? So let's say grandma, she's like, hey, I want 50 ETH back, okay? So she'll take 50 of these bill WETH and she'll send them to this time contract. And the time contract right here, withdrawal cycle 7 days. Okay. So this thing will hold her bill WETH for 7 days. Okay. And then after 7 days, assuming that there was $100 left or 100 WETH left in here, she wants 50 WETH, right? So after 7 days, then those bill WETH tokens will be burned, right? And she will be able to claim back her WETH. Now that this 50 WETH actually goes into this contract, and then she claims it back out. Okay, so it doesn't get sent to her. Okay, so I just put it to her, but keep in mind that it's going in here and sitting in there. Okay, now this is a part where I'm a little bit unclear. After the 7 days, there's obviously he's going to have to consider his reserve ratio again, and maybe he's going to go into the penalty, APR, grace period. So, withdrawing gives him 7 days to kind of notice, and then he's got the grace period of 3 days, and then he's got to make sure that his ratio is still good, right? So that makes sense, I hope. Moving on. So now let's say two people come along. Both Dollar Bill wants all his money back, or sorry, Boosted Bill wants all his money back, and Grandma wants 200 WETH back. So there are a total of 300 WETH, but there was only 100 WETH. So that will set the balance of this market to minus 200, right? So first of all, they will send those 100 and 200 WETH in there. That they don't have to be simultaneous. Like he can do it on day 1, and then she can see that this is happening, and then on day 6, put 200 in. Okay. Okay, so because there's a deficit here, there's not enough like ETH inside here, right? For all of these people. Basically, after that 7 days is up, then they will be able to claim back a pro rata share based on how much they put in. So she put 2 times as much ETH as he did. So he's going to get back 33.3333 ETH, and she's going to get back 66 ETH. So after those days, they'll be able to claim back those. Now these tokens, and then of course the 100 will be burned, but there'll still be 200 sitting in there waiting for Boosted Bill to do what he's got to do. So let's say he comes and he deposits another 100 only. Let's say he only gets 100, right? So he deposits a 100 in there, and now he reduces the deficit to 100, and then again they get pro rata shares. Okay, so then they again can claim the pro rata shares, and they're still owed and so forth. Okay, now there's some talk in the white paper and in the docs about how all of this stuff is still like when tokens are inside this timer, then they're still considered in market and reserve ratio is okay. Okay. And now when this queue comes on, this is a little bit of, I'm a little bit unclear about like when there's tokens inside this timer here, then they're still in market and still they don't affect the reserve ratio. So you're gonna have to dig a little bit deeper in here and try to understand this better if you plan on using this. But the idea here is that like these guys cannot like just start requesting money and send him into penalty APR grace over this grace period. Like while the tokens are inside this contract, they're not consider, or even when they're queued up, like when he's waiting, they're waiting for him to put more money in. It doesn't affect this reserve ratio. The reserve ratio only gets affected after that money is taken out. Okay. Um, so there's another contract that they call the Sentinel. Now the point of the Sentinel is to use chain analysis to kind of talk to the Treasury and the government of UK to see if any of these users are on sanction lists. Okay, so let's say the UK or the OFAC they think Mr. Boosted Bill here is a criminal and he shouldn't be dealing with these people legally. So he's a sanctioned person. So if that's the case, then any kind of interactions that happen with that in reference to Boosted Bill, the Sentinel will deploy these escrow contracts and take it. So, for example, let's say he does a withdrawal and he's supposed to get some ETH, then his ETH will go into this escrow. Now, if it's, let's say he's already deposited some, bill WETH into this contract, this timer contract, and then he comes here and he wants, oh, I want that. Then that ETH will be sent to this escrow, but his US his bill WETH when the sanction kicks in, then these become reduced to zero. So the Sentinel will wipe out all his bill ETH, and any ETH that he's supposed to claim, that somehow he figures out how to claim, the Sentinel will put those into an escrow contract. Now it does say that in order to get this for Boosted Bill to get this ETH, he has to get removed from the sanction list, as well as Boosted Bill or Dollar Bill has the power to release this ETH to him as well. Now, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but maybe there's some, you definitely talk to your lawyers in that sense, okay? Now, it does say if Boosted, or sorry, Dollar Bill here, the borrower is on the sanction list, then these guys are in big trouble. And basically it says, talk to your lawyer, like you trusted this guy, you knew this guy. So, figure it out. Like there's nothing that they can really do in this case. So that's pretty much it. I hope this has been useful and interesting. This is a pretty clever, interesting mechanism. Like there's no collateral, as you can see. Like Boosted Bill, sorry, Dollar Bill is borrowing these people's ETH and putting nothing up. Just like, hey guys, you know me, I'm good. I'm gonna do this cool stuff. Just give me some ETH. So it's completely uncollateralized loans. Okay. Now they do talk a little bit about this ETH that's being left in this market, this reserve ratio as kind of collateral. So that might confuse you or throw you off, but there is no collateral. Boost Dollar Bill does not need to put assets into anywhere to borrow. He doesn't have any collateral. He's just like his goodwill versus these people. So that's why this market is very permissioned. Okay, like Dollar Bill will say who can lend me the money, and these people need to talk to him and make sure that yeah we're willing to lend you the money. So it's very like traditional in the sense, hey mom, brother, can you lend me some money so I can do this, da 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 da, I will pay you this interest rate. And then everything is clear and on chain and in smart contracts and slightly adjustable so that you know it can adapt to new things, so that it's easy, because some of these adaptions, some of these little changes that I talked about here, it's to so he doesn't just spin up new contracts. Instead of just let's just wipe out this one and spin up a new one with a different APR of 3 or 3.5 or what have you. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope it's been useful and interesting. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.